The academic approach to studying comics tends to be extremely self-serving. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, what do I mean by that it's self-serving? Well, see, the thing is, comic studies is sort of a burgeoning discipline, in that it's kind of going through puberty. And I don't know if any of you remember puberty or have yet to experience puberty, but it's the most awful thing to happen to you in your entire life. You go from being a perfectly normal, contented, ordinary child, and then in a matter of a year, sometimes less, sometimes more, you turn into this. You go from being a perfectly wonderful, reasonable, innocent human being, and you turn into this. Can you imagine that? You don't have to imagine. I suppose most of you either have gone through it or will shortly go through it, so you don't really need to think about it. The experiences have or will come. Anyway, so comic studies is kind of in its adolescence, if you will. What does that mean? Well, it means that it doesn't really have a proper place in the academy. There are lots of disciplines that do comic studies, or that include comic studies in one form or another. Communication studies, especially media studies, even sometimes film studies, English departments, language programs, such as the one I was in, linguistics even. So there's a rather large variety of academic departments in which you have generally one, sometimes two, on very rare occasions three, people who study comics in one form or another. But what does that mean? It means generally that they're studying comics in accordance with the demands of their particular discipline. So for example, if you were in an English department, more than likely you'd be doing something like studying the graphic novel. The graphic novel. Or if you were in, say, a comic studies department, you might focus more on the industry, sort of modes of production, dissemination, and so forth. Or if you were in cinema studies, you'd be beating yourself in the head. I don't know. If you were a linguist, you might be talking about sort of the semiotics of comics, sort of the linguistic, like you could say, formal structure of comics. But these particular domains of study are not necessarily limited to these particular departments. But what that means is that, as someone I know, and I'm not going to mention him by name, so someone I know has once said that the comics is fundamentally multidisciplinary. What does that mean? Well, it's a way of not saying interdisciplinary. Because interdisciplinary, to use the adjective, is this term that is used all the time in the academy. And it's this thing that supposedly everybody is supposed to do. Everybody is supposed to be aware of what is going on in other departments and other fields of study, and trying to integrate that into their own research. And everyone is supposed to be doing it, and it's always the hot new thing. It's been the hot new thing for the past 30 years. So, in other words, it's not the hot new thing. Anyway, you can hear the garage door opening, so I'm going to close this video for now. I know I haven't really said much of anything. The point is just, I don't know, to say something. So, fuck off.